With the thousands of federal agents in the Twin Cities area now. Of course, a lot of anxiety with many of the immigrant families and those who are undocumented. For children, whether they're U.S. citizens or not, they may not fully understand what's happening or why they may not want to go to school or maybe even leave the house. So how do parents really explain this to their kids and maintain some normalcy here and process what they know and what questions they have? So joining us now, Dr. P.J. Stryker, a psychiatrist with Children's Minnesota. Dr. Stryker, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
For the sake of this, we'll focus on elementary age students, who may have seen or heard about the presence of federal agents. They may know they look different from a police officer. But as a parent, where do you start a conversation with that age of children? Again, whether they are somebody who is not leaving the house or whether they're just seeing this on the news. Where do you start this conversation?
I think the first thing to do is really just ask kids what they've heard. They may have heard things from their friends, from their teachers, from other parents at the school, or just see things on the news or watching us watch things on the news or see things on social media. So really to start out, first of all, what have you heard? What do you understand about what's happening and what questions do you have for me?
Always good to get kind of a baseline too, of so you know what viewpoint or kind of view that they're coming into this from. And then I think you also suggested then as you do that, so you kind of you get that information out of them, what their understanding is, and then you will let them sort of lead that continued conversation.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important that we give them the space to say what they think is happening and to ask us questions, right? And I think as a parent or guardian, you really want to start by just giving them reassurance that you are there for them. You're there to listen to what questions they have, and that your job is to be the adult and to keep them safe, right? We don't want to give them false promises, but say I'm the parent, I'm here to help keep you safe. Here are other safe adults that you have, and also just what are you feeling? What's out there, and how do we talk about that together?
Yeah, so focus on the feelings of these kids.
Absolutely, and they may have feelings from no feelings, right? They may not have any thoughts about it. They may be really scared, they may be upset, they may really wonder what's gonna happen. And so give them the space to just open up and just be really present, right? Like make eye contact, be at their level, and just see what they have to say to you.
What are your suggestions? I know you kind of talk about here what not to say in these situations and talking to children about this.
I think the most important thing is don't dismiss it, right? It is really important that we don't say, oh, don't worry about that, it's not real, because there are real things happening and they may see real things. And so to say, it's okay to be scared, I might be scared too, how do we talk about this together? What are 3 things we're going to do as a family to make sure that we're all okay? And that may be just very simple things, right? Like it might be we're going to eat our meals together, we're going to spend time as a family, we're going to do things together to really make sure we're doing our day-to-day stuff, but not to just kind of minimize their feelings, because they may have feelings at different points and we want to make sure they know we're the safe person for them to talk to.
And why is it important to have these conversations and to do them in the right way rather than just sort of avoid the topic? I mean, you worry about the imprint that this can make on a young mind that may continue on for unresolved questions or maybe fears for maybe years.
I think that's exactly it, right? We don't want them coming up with their own narrative about what's happening in the world. The world is always going to be a scary place, and as parents, we want to help contain that the best we can, right? And help kids figure out how to manage it and talk about things so that when they're growing up and they're adults, they also can continue to ask questions and manage their anxieties and their feelings. So the more that we help them do that and provide that structure and scaffolding for them, the better.
Yeah. In terms of, some districts offering e-learning, or at-home learning, how do you see that in something like this impacting the questions or emotions of school-age kids?
I think just like with healthcare, right? Schools have a goal of just making sure kids are getting educated. And so if we have to have schools shift to e-learning, so that kids aren't just missing out on education and still have that routine and structure in place for them. I think it's a great option. We didn't have all this technology 20 years ago to be able to do this, and so let's take advantage of it in the best way we can to make sure kids are getting education and they're getting their healthcare needs met.
And then, we talked about this in terms of the, parents talking to the children, or letting the children talk to them, about this. Again, that was an important distinction. Let them lead the conversation and share what they know or feeling. What is your advice, though, when it's a different adult, say their teacher at school? Do they approach this in any different way than the parental figure?
I think the most important thing for teachers and other staff, right, whether it's daycare, school, aftercare programs, is really just to focus on we are safe here and we have ways that we're going to handle it, but our goal is to keep focusing on the need at hand, which is school or our activity. And to really just, we are going to keep going on with our day-to-day life the best we can, because that helps kids feel the sense of stability.
Okay, and again, just to revisit this, the importance of having these conversations, because in your line of work, in your practice, I guess you would probably see some of these sort of unresolved things that could linger, and how could they be expressed? I mean, what do you see? What are the possibilities about how this may come back to haunt, the psyche of a child down the road?
Well, so when we start seeing that kids aren't sleeping, right? They're kind of out of their normal. They're not sleeping well. They're not eating well. They're more irritable. They're crying. They're more anxious. Those are signs to us as parents of we need to kind of step in and ask about what's going on.
Okay.
And I think the biggest thing, again, is just to be there and be really open, and be that person for your child to go to.
All right. Dr. PJ Stryker, with a psychiatrist with Children's Minnesota. Thank you so much for your insight here on what can be certainly a stressful time for everybody, but for young minds. All right.
Have a good day.
All right. Have a good day.